They say you can't polish a turd, but here we are. I've done an update to my first game, Shitty Quest. Check out the itch.io page if you want to try out Shitty Quest Adequate Edition. So there were some aspects of the game that I wasn't completely happy with, and I decided I should make a new version of it for the 10th anniversary of its first release. He looks as shitty as me.
That's not very nice. I look far shittier. Why the nerve?
The game still means a lot to me, since it's the first time I actually completed a significant project, and taught myself an important lesson in the process. Anybody home? I know someone's in there.
No, you don't.
What? Oh, I mean, silence. I think it's a somewhat more enjoyable experience now, so why not give it a go if you haven't played it before? Even if you played the original, I think you'll enjoy some of the new stuff. This dead twig has got to be useless enough for you.
No way, that looks positively functional.
For what?
You're the player character, you work it out.
Naturally, this video will be full of spoilers, so if you haven't played it yet, I recommend doing so before watching this. It started when Packbilly told me he wished he'd done one of the lines differently. You are defying your nature by trying so hard. Therefore, you will negate your own existence.
Nice try, Shatner.
And from there, I realised there were a few things I wanted to change too. For instance, when the antagonist starts destroying the world with laziness, the player has to catch one of the orbs he uses in order to solve an inventory object puzzle. But many people said that the way this was executed was unintuitive. After goading him, he fires an orb, and the player has to quickly right-click on it to grab it. But it wasn't clear that you had control back from the dialogue sequence when the orb comes at you. It just looked to the player like this was a scripted sequence, and it's not clear at all that they could actually do something. So to the players it felt like a dead end. Even when they found the solution, it didn't feel satisfying. So the new version involves a more traditional object puzzle. It's pretty basic, but I think it's funnier this way. Give me some inventory or something. Brilliant. There were a lot of little things that were worth improving. The cursor now highlights when you move over an object, and turns into an arrow to indicate an exit. Using a selected inventory item works with the left or right click now, and there's some more frames of animation where it looked a little bit clunky before. Ow. The designer room always seemed a bit dull. There was nothing to do except explore the dialogue tree. So I added a little puzzle to give the player a bit more of a feeling of agency. Also took the opportunity to make it look a whole lot better, and throw in some Easter eggs, like the early prototype of Guildmaster on the big screen, as well as some screenshots of other projects I never finished. A little plug for Guildmaster doesn't hurt either. Looks like he's making something. Is that a turn-based dungeon crawler? With diverse tactical combat, and an irreverent humorous storyline and characters? Yeah, it's not finished yet though. The bad ending was also quite unsatisfying as well. When the protagonist decides to press the button that will destroy the world and ruin the designer's plans for a new game, this leads to a scene where the designer just asks the player if they want to make another choice. It breaks the fourth wall a bit too hard. The game already has a bit of that going on, with the designer being a character, but it's not really the designer talking in this ending, it's me. I'd originally written it that way because this was still a test game. I was thinking of the button decision as a way to ask the player if it was worth me carrying on as a game designer, rather than something that is happening in the world of the game. But now, after a more explosive world destruction, we have something much funnier and more consistent with the world of the game.
So you wanted to see everything explode, did you? You think we're gonna reward that kind of behavior? No. Turn the game off. You lost, okay? Do not use the built-in feature that takes you back into the story and lets you see the real ending, the much better ending, because you're never gonna get to that ending because you suck at video games. Give up now, just lay down.
The best part of the game, in my opinion, is all the little jokes and fun dialogue. Packbilly and I spent quite a while coming up with lots of fun interaction and gags when you're doing things that don't actually move the game forward. Randomly hurling objects off the cliff is my favourite thing to do. I mean, my favourite thing to don't. So I decided to give the player a little nudge towards looking for those with the unachievement system. There are 12 to find, each relating to finding a fun interaction that doesn't advance the story at all. See if you can find them all. It's a very stereotypical big red button.
Maybe if you press it, we'll get a typical stereo.
In the years since making Shitty Quest, I've got used to using Unity, which is a very different environment to work in than AGS. Unity is very broad. You can do so much with it. There are quite a few systems in place that save you having to reinvent the wheel, from basic stuff like rendering to things like animation and tile mapping. But there's still so much you need to build from the ground up in Unity. If I wanted to make Shitty Quest in Unity, I'd have to create a dialogue system, a way for the characters to move around, an inventory system, a save system, etc. But in AGS, all of this is already there, out of the box. It really is an excellent tool for making adventure games. But it can be quite difficult to do anything it wasn't really designed to do. Some of the new features I added were a bit tricky to pull off. You have to use weird workarounds, like the button that moves up into view when the lazy guy is berating the player. In Engine, that button is a character, because buttons and objects aren't supposed to move. So the only way to get it to move into place was to make it a character, which is obviously a bit excessive. I expect there's probably another way to do it, but this was the only way I could figure out. There are plugins for a lot of features that the AGS community have put together. For instance, normally you can't interact with something when there's dialogue playing, but I needed the player to be able to press this button at any time during the sequence when the lazy guy is going on. AGS can't do any of that out of the box, but I found a plugin called Cued Speech which made it possible. There were a few things like that, and it often made me wish that I could use the tools I had in Unity. But that's the trade-off when you use a platform that is so tightly focused on delivering certain features. Imagine what it'll do to the people in the next game.
Like make them sift through useless dialogue trees.
Yes.
I like dialogue trees, especially useless ones.
The dialogue system in AGS is excellent. It's so smooth to work with. But if I was using Unity, I'd need to build that myself, or get something from the asset store. So yeah, trade-offs. I'm also used to working in a very different coding environment. AGS scripting is a bit odd. You can't reference a function that hasn't already been declared above the function you're calling from. It's just odd. And I have no idea how to code cleanly in this thing. This script is a mess. But AGS is still absolutely the best thing to make an adventure game in, if you aren't looking to do something too unusual. Some AGS games do pull off some impressive tricks, and I have no idea how. If I give you this key, will you stop destroying everything? It's useless now, the safe is open.
No, a key still has intrinsic utility. Anyway, it will be gone soon, along with everything else. And as we all know, the lack of a useless key is the only thing more useless than a useless key.
Recording new lines of dialogue was also a bit tricky. I wasn't completely sure I got the echo effect right on the designer's voice. So what is this next game going to be about? It's a fantasy RPG with rich tactical turn-based combat like XCOM, and an irreverent, humorous storyline and characters.
Derivative.
Packbally also had to rediscover the lazy guy's voice. He did a great job though.
Wouldn't it be nice just to lay catatonic and drool for the rest of your life?
I'm really pleased to have this new version to show you. It really was the beginning of something important for me, and it's nice to be able to have it in a bit more of a presentable form. No knob on this side. I beg to differ. My game development over the last 10 years has been slower than I expected. I made many mistakes and spent far too much time doing things in inefficient and wasteful ways. But I've learned from it, and I'm hopeful the next 10 years will be much more productive, and I'll be able to share a few more games I've made. Speaking of which, soon I'll be getting back to making devlogs for viral weapons. I was feeling a little discouraged for a while, to be honest. I ran into a few severe roadblocks, but I've been learning better ways to code and how to prevent some of the issues I ran into. I'll talk about that more in the next video, where I will show how I untangled some of the spaghetti code I created. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. How about a space battle? Got one of those in the works already.
I might actually finish it one day.